I've wanted to talk about this one for a good long while, but I don't want to go full blown crazy about this one. Because this is not necessarily a movie review, even though technically the show is called Fearox Movie Reviews. So the title, we're going to talk about Robocop the Series. Yes, for those who don't know, Robocop actually had a live action TV show way back in the 90s, and it was mostly on, and it was basically designed for television. Yeah. However, unlike what most people may have actually thought, the show was not what you would think it was. I mean, you would think it was a ultra violent, like an ultra violent show or something, kind of like how the movie was, kind of like how the original movies was. But no, this was anything but that. No, no, no. This was how best to describe it? Okay. Uh, okay. For some of you who probably can't figure it out, if you actually watch my old show called Fearox Frank Reviews, you know for a fact the first RoboCop film I saw when I was a kid was RoboCop 3. Yes, most people call it the Bastard 3, but me, I have nostalgia for the third RoboCop film because I still like it. Even to this day, it has its flaws, but I still like it for nostalgic reasons. And also, Robert John Burke was actually not a bad RoboCop in particular. But on all essence, it wasn't until a little bit later on I found out there was a TV show made because of the movie. In fact, let's just say that RoboCop 3 was very violent, apparently. So when the TV show was made, they made it a more G-rated version compared to the third film. I know what you're thinking. All right, some of you guys are you're basically like clapping or something or snickering, saying that I'm full of shit. That there's no way that actually happened. Sadly, it did. And to make matters worse, I actually have the entire show on DVD. That's right, I have it right here. Robocop the Series. What the fuck? Okay, apparently there's something wrong with the DVD case. Because everywhere you look, it says Robocop the Series, whether it's on YouTube, Tubi, Amazon Prime, Netflix, whatever the hell you have a streaming service and it's on the streaming service, it's always called Robocop the Series. But for some reason, on the DVD case I have here, it's called Robocop the Beginning. You had to go look at that. Yeah, the Beginning. Why is it called that? I have no freaking clue. Yeah, real quick. When I say it was shot in the winter, that means most of the episodes were all shot during the winter season. Yeah, and keep this in mind, this show was actually made in Canada, and it was actually broadcasted originally in Canada. Which would explain why it was super friendly or something. No, it's not really super friendly. No, it's not that super friendly. No, not really. But basically, the show is designed to be a more kid-friendly version, of RoboCop 3. Like RoboCop 3 was like super violent or something, so they made a kid-friendly version of it. And this was all in 1994 when the show was made. Just shortly after RoboCop 3 was finished filming, they made this show. Do you see the confusion on my face? How the hell they actually did that? I mean, maybe the show was sort of a tie-in or something, but I don't know what the hell they were thinking, particularly. And the whole show doesn't just follow RoboCop; it follows other characters too. The whole show is designed to be more like a cop drama. That's what it was made. That's what it was made to be. But it takes place within the near future. We don't have an exact year particularly, but I'm going to say it's maybe in the 2010s. I think. Depending, I don't know, maybe not. But all I know is that the main characters are, aside from RoboCop himself, we also have Detective Elisa Mannequin, who originally starts off the show as a cop in the first episode, but then she gets promoted to detective. We also have Stanley Parks, Sergeant Stanley Parks, who's basically his commander, and Okay, I know what you think. What about Lewis? What about Sergeant Reed? They don't exist in this world. Yeah, this movie. Yeah, apparently this is an alternate world where, in the future, and the first two episodes, aka the pilot movie, on the other hand, is called "The Future of Law Enforcement." So they just rewrote the whole thing, and it acts more like a sequel, like a PG-13 sequel. Also, Robocop doesn't actually kill anybody in the show or go super violent by any means. So they really nerfed him throughout the show, or more or less they had to nerf him his violent level down because they actually gave him a lot more stuff, like a lot of stuff. As far as the characters are concerned, they're more or less different characters than what we're used to. Like, one of the other characters that's actually made for the show, who's actually an ally to RoboCop, is a woman who was actually later murdered and actually became, well, part of the city. Yeah, her spirit is now actually part of the electrical system. She's basically a virtual ghost, and she actually helps power the whole city under this thing called Neurobrain. Her name is Diana Powers, and, well, she basically is the closest thing that RoboCop has to a true friend because, well, they both died and they both got resurrected in the cyberest way ever imagined. Now, aside from that, other there's also a couple of other characters too, there's also the scientist guy that actually works with RoboCop all the time. That he's kind of, instead of Marie Lazarus, it's a Charlie Lippincott. He's just RoboCop's tech. And so there's some episodes he's not in. Some he's just in for a comedy sketch, and sometimes he's actually part of the main. He's actually part of the main storyline. Okay. As for the old man, well, all he is just called the OCP chairman. He's played by a completely different actor who was, well, not gonna lie, the polar opposite of the old man from the RoboCop series. Like, legitimate, the polar opposite. Now, I'm sure you guys now, like I said, this movie was supposed to coincide with RoboCop 3, so my guess is they were supposed to originally get Nico in this, but they decided not to get her at all. But instead, we actually wound up getting a new girl called Gadget, who later Sergeant Parks actually winds up adopting, and she's sort of like the young kid character. She's basically like the young kid character, or basically the kid, basically that the show demographic was going for. But whatever. Aside from that, we also get recurring characters too, like, say, RoboCop's family is heavily involved. Like Nancy Murphy, his son James is involved in some problems. Hell, even his parents are involved too. Like Alex Murphy's mother and father are both actually involved in a couple of episodes. In fact, one of the episodes is particularly about a mad bomber who Alex Murphy's father actually arrested years ago. And he actually wound up escaping a mental asylum and wound up setting up bombs all over the place. So he teams up with RoboCop, even though he doesn't actually fully trust RoboCop. This is before, in fact, he finds out that RoboCop is his son, by the way. But either way, he actually is very helpful in most of the episodes he's actually in. So he's not really much of a burden. And here's the question, though: what about the villains? Huh? Are the villains any good? Well, not gonna lie, some of the villains are actually part of the reason why I remember the show pretty well. Yeah, okay, here's a list of what the villains actually are, for example. I mean, I ain't had the thing queued up on, behind me, behind the camera at the moment. Okay, so we have William Ray Pudface Morgan, his face is actually heavily deformed in a bit of a goofy way. But he's mostly basically considered the Joker character of the entire show. Basically, it's usually like a running gag on the show. And actually, joking aside, I'm not gonna lie, he's actually one of the best things that's actually in the show, because the actor who plays him is surprisingly pretty damn hilarious. It's actually kind of fun. And every time he's on the show, he's just a blast. And he practically takes over the show half the time when he's on it, though. But every episode he's in always ends with him getting punched in the face by RoboCop. It's like the biggest running gag throughout the entire show. Like, seriously, by the end of the episode, you see, like, RoboCop's holding him up like this. Like, oh, really? Oh, really, RoboPunk? What you gonna do? This? Not the face! He goes flying across the room. I wish I could show a clip of that, but oh my god, it's one of the funniest things that's actually in the show, and it happens all the fucking time. And you know what? Not gonna lie, it never gets old. Oh, God. Especially in the final episode of it, too. It's like he literally gets punched in the face. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Okay, but aside from like Pudface Morgan, who's like one of the biggest main villains, the other main villain that's actually one of the recurring characters, he's also in the first, he was also in the pilot movie along with with Pudface, is Dr. Cray Malado. This guy is just an eccentric psychopath who thinks he can get away with anything, and he's basically one of those eccentric guys who's just okay. Put it this way: think of it as Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory, but he's completely insane. But he's completely mentally insane and thinks he's right about everything, except he's a super criminal. Like seriously, he kills a bunch of homeless people, and he even killed his assistant Diana, and he's the inventor of Neurobrain. Yeah, that's how crazy this guy is exactly. Oh, and just to give you an idea, he's played by Clifty Young. That's right, character actor himself, Clifty Young, who has been in tons of movies where he plays a nice guy, a sleazeball, a bastard. He's one of the best characters. He's actually one of the best actors that's actually in the show. All right, so yeah, every time you see an episode with either with Pudface or Mulatto, the show's gonna be good. Well, for the most part, anyway. Though, I mean, there's also there's also Chip Chaikin, his assistant, who's actually done a ton of other stupid shit, and he's also done other things for Mulatto from here and there outside of Mulatto's things, but he usually gets screwed over, like a lot. There's also like Leo and Shorty, which are actually the triggermen for Pudface Morgan. They're kind of like the dynamic. They're kind of like I'm not gonna say dynamic duo. I'm just gonna say dynamic dimwits. Yeah, dynamic dimwits. That is all I can say about those guys. Is just pure dynamic dimwits. Just dimwitted beyond recognition. I mean, I'm sure you know the term foobar. Okay, I'm pretty sure there's a terminology with the word dimwit in it somewhere. Those guys would definitely be in it. So, right. But there's also other guys too. There's also Vlad Stitch Molotov, who's actually part of the Russian mafia. The reason why he's called Stitch is because he has a scar on his face and it's stitched up, so hence they call him Stitch. But joke is, he hates that. He actually hates being called Stitch Molotov. Go figure. There's also Reggie Braga, who's actually a Brazilian crime boss. So basically, Reggie and Vlad are like two of the biggest crime bosses within the city. There's actually a ton of other criminals throughout the entire show as well, but they mostly just come and go as they please. So seriously, when it comes down to the main criminals on the show, it's going to be Pudface, Mulatto, Braga, or Vlad. The plot of the show is basically just Robocop just trying to do his duty, but like you said, the show is super less fun. I literally just explained almost 15 minutes of just explaining most of the characters on the show. But honestly, the way the plot of the whole show goes, it's mostly just like it's like a cop show, but designed originally for a Saturday morning cartoon, but it's made for kids. And also, there's a ton of corporate shit throughout the entire show. Like, you know, there's always those corporate and sponsors and shit that are just labeled throughout the entire movies. The whole show has the same problem. But there's actually a sponsor character that was actually made specifically for the show called Commander Cash. He's a cartoon character that is, let's just say, even Homelander will actually look at this guy. Seriously, Homelander will just, from The Boys, will just look at this guy and go, "You're a fucking sellout. Seriously, you are a fucking sellout." Not even joking. Like, that's how much of it, that's kind of, it's like I said, it's completely ridiculous. Some of the plot points of the show, like I said, it's mostly just trying to stop crime, bring justice to all and stuff, and also mostly trying to keep the people safe. And Robocop is trying to do this as minimalist of a job as he can, and also going super less on the violence. But some of the storylines in the episodes are, in my opinion, not that bad, but the thing is, if the show actually maintained the violence level from the original movies, then the show could have actually helped out. It probably could have helped the show out a little bit more. But like for example, aside like I said earlier with like the bomb with the crazy bomber with and Alex's father, again that's actually pretty decent. It's a pretty decent episode for a plot point. So there's also one with like where Alex Murphy actually knew this one kid who actually went to the commandos many years ago, but he came back as a mentally unstable soldier who actually wants to try who actually almost shut down Neurobrain and actually killed the whole system and actually almost killed hundreds of people. Until eventually the guy found out that, well, it's actually his old buddy Murphy, but he swore Murphy died years ago. But in a sense, they're both dead and they both came back. The guy unfortunately doesn't actually make it in the end, but Robocop, there are some, like, I won't say this, there are some, like, heartfelt moments in the show and some heartbreaking moments in the show, too. Hell, there's actually an episode called Heartbreaker. Yeah, right here. There's an episode literally called Heartbreakers because there's a weapon called called the Heartbreaker. You know what it does? Gives people instant heart attacks. Now, I'm not laughing about that because I've had family members who've had heart attacks and actually have died from it, so I don't think it's a joke. But the idea somebody made a machine and weaponized it as to give you an instant cardiac arrest. What the fuck? Hey. Some of the hard parts of the show is actually when Robocop is actually has to do the right thing and actually has to follow the law. So there was even this one episode where like it turns out like Nancy Murphy was on welfare the whole time, which didn't make any sense because okay, wait a minute, Alex died, he's officially dead, so by law she has to have Alex's benefits, right? No, it turns out there's a bunch of legal clause bullshit, and she actually wound up going on welfare, and she was targeted by these criminals who were going after her because she was protesting about the whole thing, which actually made it worse for the criminals because they were corporate criminals actually working for OCP, and well, it's Nancy Murphy, so yeah, she's getting the protection of Robocop. What the hell did you expect? Eventually, thanks to Diana, Robocop was able to find out that these people were doing everything illegally. And eventually, Diana tells the chairman that the chairman actually this time around he's not as much of a bastard. He actually does help out from time to time, and he actually works alongside with the police department and Robocop. And he's one of only two people who who actually know about Diana's existence in Neurobrain. The first person being Robocop himself. So yeah, the man basically sits upon this pedestal of power of known as Omni Consumer Products, and he knows two people who actually have died who come back from the dead, and he mostly and even though the show doesn't really say, he probably does question his morality from time to time, but he even has actual heartfelt conversations with Alex Murphy, and he doesn't talk to him as Robocop, he talks to him as Murphy in a couple of episodes, so yeah, that's saying a lot right there. Like he's even having moral problems himself, even Robocop himself is having moral problems. Does everybody in the show actually need to see a psychiatrist? You know, scratch that. I don't think even the psychiatrist can handle this. Probably not. So eventually, the way most of the episodes all go, Robocop usually wins in the end, or in some way or another, the good always prevails. All right. Especially one episode where this one kid was trying to get where OCP was trying to get this one kid a heart transplant. They actually found a donor, and they found the actual heart this kid actually needs. Because of the episode previously, the kid's parents actually helped fix Robocop up, and also kept the chairman safe. But the chairman, well, he mostly wanted to do this because he felt he was obligated to do it. So, not only just for free press, but also when he found out who actually was in charge of the original surgery for the kid earlier, he was pissed, but he didn't put the person in jail because he let the doctor actually redo the surgery again to make amends. But the look on his face says he just wanted to beat the living shit out of that person. I mean, yeah, it says a lot right there. So, I mean, some of these criminals are straight up heartless. I mean, the main criminals I talked about, they can be heartless too, but With them, it makes a lot of sense because they are the main criminals, but these other criminals who just come and go throughout the show, most of them are just straight up heartless. And you want to see some of these guys actually bite the big one. Though, to be fair, some of them actually do. And to be fair, Robocop has actually killed some people, actually killed a few people on the show, but it wasn't intentional. Like, for example, the Heartbreakers episode, the main villain of the episode actually discovers Robocop's true identity and knows he's Alex Murphy. He even targets Nancy Murphy himself. He actually kidnaps her, and he actually forces Robocop to do jobs for him. Yeah, I swear to God, I wish I was making that part up. But eventually, and here's the thing: Robocop couldn't actually tell anybody at all what he was doing, you know. And at some point, but here's what the criminal didn't realize: he didn't know anything about Diana. So Robocop actually talks to Diana. Diana talks to the chairman, and both of them go back and forth in the whole stuff. And they eventually get Parks involved in the whole thing. No, Diana never meets Parks at all, but she does meet Lippincott in one or two episodes at one point. But she's mostly just a data analysis, like a data analyst. So there's that. But that's just about it, though. In fact, that very episode with the Heartbreaker thing, that's when she first meets Lippincott. Yeah, it's in a VR program when this is actually they first meet each other, though. So because of that, her and Lippincott discover what happened, but they relayed the message to the chairman and to Sergeant Parks. However, Diana was also doing something else in the background, and they actually discovers where Nancy is. So Robocop gets the device to actually enhance the Heartbreaker. He goes straight to the criminal himself. The criminal uses the Heartbreaker on Robocop. Even has it up to the highest setting. It's hitting Robocop right into his blast shield, and the thing just bounces right off, and it hits the guy, and he bursts into flames, and he turns to ash. Yeah. It's one of the only times Robocop has actually killed somebody on the show, but for somebody this ruthless, honestly, he's better off dead. Yeah. And you want to know what the twist was in the episode? He did. Robocop should have actually told Nancy, but he doesn't actually tell her. He says that mostly because of the fact that she's actually the wife of a cop, and cops are family. So yeah, you go after one cop's little family, you basically go after everybody else's family. Yeah. Oh, and the twist was the device Robocop actually stole. He didn't steal it. No, all he did was take the Heartbreaker, but he didn't take the enhancer. He was supposed to take the enhancer, but he left it at the factory as a giant middle finger to the guy. Yeah. Oh, one episode a lot of people remember is the one where Roddy Piper plays Commander Cash. I'm not joking. Hot Rod Roddy Piper is in the show, and he plays Commander Cash. Oh my God. Oh, good. And the episode is called Robocop versus Commander Cash. Oh my God. Oh, I swear to God, I literally had to take a break while watching the episode because I couldn't stop laughing. Oh yeah. Oh, Hot Rod. Oh, rest in peace, you wonderful, talentful bastard. Oh, you knew how to entertain us. Oh, man. Yeah. Well, the deal with Commander Cash with the Commander Cash character played by Hot Rod. It turns out the character actually was an OCP member, but he decided to take on the personification of Commander Cash. At some point, he and Robocop do have a bit of a back and forth conversation. But at some point, Robocop decides to trust Commander Cash, and he finds out exactly what happened. And yeah, he teams up with him and goes after the corporate bastard who actually did all the harm. So that was a pretty decent episode, relatively silly, but what are you gonna do about it, right? Hot Rod Roddy Piper. Can you imagine they actually got a pro wrestler play Robocop instead? Actually, now that I think about it, Robocop was actually on WCW a long time ago. Wow. And the world of pro wrestling was fucking crazy back then. One of the noteworthy episodes about the show itself was actually one. It was actually one of the last episodes. It was called called Midnight Minus One. This one's a unique episode in particular. There's also like Mother's Day too, but there's also Public Enemies. These are the three probably biggest noteworthy episodes for several reasons. Mother's Day is actually when Stitch Molotov actually decides to go after Sergeant Parks and targets Gadget, amongst all things. Now keep this in mind, Gadget is actually the adopted is actually Parks' adopted daughter at this time around, and she's basically the kid character throughout the entire show. But at some point in the episode, she actually wanted to find who her real mother was. And this woman that Stitch actually found who has bad gambling debts who actually gave up her child many years ago, decides to actually kidnap Gadget. But something changes, and she actually starts to care for Gadget a bit more and more, and she basically tries her best to protect Gadget. But in the end, she does do her best to protect Gadget, and she almost gets killed in the process. Gadget also tries to help her out too, and basically Robocop and Parks actually both wind up arresting Stitch Molotov for basically doing something this horrifically bad. But there's a twist. The woman, Parks actually had her DNA ran against Gadget's identical. Yeah, the woman was actually Gadget's mother the entire time. But that's why she went into full parental mode, because she was basically the daughter she gave up several years ago. But here's the thing: she's not exactly good for Gadget yet. She wants Parks to take care of. She tells Parks to take care of her. She'll come back to her once she's fully cleaned up, and he says that she'll be there for her. But until then, it's best to tell Gadget she's not really her daughter. So, I mean, yeah, makes a lot of sense. Now, Minutes to Midnight is probably where Robocop does the most badass thing in the whole show, and honestly, this probably should have got the show renewed for a second season, but sadly it didn't. This one crazy OCP executive is actually young, and he's mental. And here's the thing: this guy is mentally unstable, and he thinks everybody's after him, particularly. Madigan, when she was a cop, actually arrested some guy because this person killed a bunch of people with ricin, and this exec actually brainwashed the guy into believing that, yeah, he actually did do it because he's also holding the family hostage, the guy's family hostage. And so once he's executed, the family will be well compensated. And, the guy will be set for life. And of course, the corporate criminal will be set for life. And also, make matters worse, the judge, the warden of the prison that the guy's in, is also in on it. So this executive basically does everything. I mean, fucking everything to make sure everything goes his way. Like I said, he's a little, like, mentally a little out there. Even the Joker will look at this guy going, here's the thing. You need help. Oh, go to psychiatrist. Yeah. All right, here's my card. Right here. Right there for you. All right, now, if you want to talk, give me a call, and I'll set you up with somebody that I know who might actually help you, okay? All right, you need help. You just need help. Nothing wrong. Just saying. I mean, come on. I mean, I'm just saying at this point. So anyway, this guy goes. Robocop basically tries everything to try to stop. Try to actually, once more evidence is more discovered. One of the biggest key pieces of evidence is basically, this guy actually wound up keeping one of the ricin containers and actually kept it in a storage locker until these criminals actually found it and actually threw it at Robocop inside of his car. Robocop actually sealed his car completely with him inside of it. And he was exposed to the ricin for almost 14 hours. But he was eventually found he was fine, it says. The only organic components he actually has inside of him right now is just his heart, his facial features, and his brain. He doesn't have a set of lungs. Thank God. So when the ricin container was actually discovered, that's when they actually had to repull the investigation. And this corporate guy is doing everything to actually shut everything down. Even the warden is basically trying his best to make sure this execution is going all the way through. At some point, Robocop actually tails the guy. And he actually finds out he's with Stitch Molotov and with so many other criminals in town. And Robocop accidentally gets tossed into a car press. And the Stitch actually turns the damn thing on. And, well, okay, it's a hydraulic press, and you know Robocop's not going to survive this. Yeah, Robocop actually has a limit meter of how much he can actually withstand in the matter of PSI force. So yeah, in a sense, the compactor is just too strong for Robocop, and he's basically at this point he's having his arms all the way out, trying his best, trying to keep him from getting killed. And then we see the most crazy thing actually happen. This is actually supposedly in a kids show. Okay, Robocop is literally having flashbacks. Okay, look, I know this is actually more like a G-rated show, and it was actually originally aimed at kids, but they actually had to get the parents involved in it at some point, so there is some killings in the show. But again, it's more toned down. But in this instance, we actually see everything that happened to Robocop. We actually see him we see like flashbacks from the first movie of when Barnacle and his gang actually shot and killed him, and where this corporate guy says he's already dead, we can pretty much do whatever the hell he wants. Basically saying that he's nothing more than a useless pile of trash. But basically, Robocop at this point, he screams out no, and with his sheer willpower, he actually stops the hydraulic press and actually pushes against it, and he actually breaks the hydraulic press. He broke a hydraulic press that was stronger than him, and he just pushed it all the way back with his sheer willpower, giving him extra strength. You know, when it comes to sci-fi characters, there's some guys you don't fuck with. Robocop is at the number one spot for a fucking reason. So yeah, eventually he actually goes into the meeting and he busts everybody up and he arrests everybody. Unfortunately, they don't have much evidence to actually save the criminal, save the convicted guy. Until Robocop actually screws the exec over and saying that he was actually part of an undercover sting operation, and then the guy he folds and saying, no, he confessed the whole crime, everything. And here's the thing: Robocop actually had his stress analyzer that basically tell him that person was lying. 100% true. So yeah. Unfortunately, the biggest problem is the warden is still in on it. He's going to try to kill the guy regardless. So Robocop gets into his car, he races over there, and he busts right into the execution chamber. The guy is literally about to be electrocuted to death. Robocop actually grabs onto the circuits and gets electrocuted and survives. Okay, I just want to reiterate what happened in this episode. All right, minutes to midnight, Robocop has been exposed to ricin, nearly killed by a hydraulic press, and actually destroyed the damn thing by his sheer willpower, giving him more strength, and he gets electrocuted. Literally within an hour of almost being killed by a hydraulic press. Enough said. No. Oh, but so yeah, the guy was later found not guilty, and the executive is actually now sentenced to death. Justice for all, my friend. But the final episode is where things get a little ridiculous. Basically, Millardo tries to pull the act that he's psychic along with his buddy Chip Aiken. Along with his brother Chip with Shaken, he's working along with Pugface Morgan, and he's actually and Millardo is actually doing the psychic thing, predicting Pugface Morgan's crimes. And to make matters worse, in Delta City, within the city itself, in Delta City or Detroit or whatever the hell you're going to call it nowadays, the president is supposed to actually make her appearance. Yes, the president's a woman in the show, so. That's one thing they actually got rid of that. Well, that's actually one thing they actually did different in real life. We never once had a female president yet, so. I mean, seriously. We never get a female president in real life. Well, it's not exactly true. Once, well, that's not exactly true, but whatever. I'm not going to go into details on that. Anyways, the episode. Anyway, the whole thing gets even more ridiculous, but eventually, in keeping the president under guard and everything, the whole episode basically ends with Shankin and Mulatto actually being exposed, and of course, Pudface and his boy, Pudface along with his two goons, the dimwit squad, the dimwits. He tries to run over Robocop, but here's the thing: I kind of forgot to mention, Robocop's got a lot of shit in this show. Not only does he have his gun and his sheer strength and will, he also has access to other gadgets. He's got a secondary gun with small explosive charges in his legs. He's also got rails within his feet, so he can actually stop himself and actually staple himself into the ground, so he can use himself as a barrier to stop cars when they hit him. And he's got a lot more ridiculous shit too. All right, so they actually gave him more crap in here, but they nerfed his strength even more because of the violence, because they didn't want him to show violence. That was probably the biggest mistake the executives on the show ever made. They should have made it violent, because let's face it, we like Robocop violence. So yeah, unfortunately, what does Pudface try to do? He tries to run him over, but it doesn't work too well. And of course, we get the final, not the face. Yeah, so the president congratulates Robocop, and he goes back to work as a cop, because I'm a cop. Excuse me, somewhere there is a crime happening. And in essence, that's literally how the show ended. We never got a sequel series. We never actually got a season 2 or anything. No, the last thing we actually got from Robocop that was actually television related was the Prime Directive films. Yeah, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. Maybe I'll get into those. Yeah, I'm probably going to get into those one day, but right now, as far as Robocop the series is concerned, would I actually even recommend this show for you people? For my viewers? Would I recommend it for my colleagues, my friends? It's up to you. All right, but here's the thing: if you actually have the app known as Tubi, it's actually on there. All right, so it's on the streaming service of Tubi. It's also on Amazon. It's also on Amazon Prime, mostly for free anyway, and it's also on YouTube as well. So watch it. If you want to watch it at your own risk, that's up to you. All right, I'm not going to stop you. Watch it at your own risk. All right, but for me personally, would I rather watch the entire TV show, or would I actually rather watch Robocop 3? Robocop 3 all the way. Well, that's all I got for now. So, if you excuse me, I'm pretty damn tired of all this goddamn snow we've been getting lately throughout this entire month. I need a beer. So until then, this is Fearox Frank for Fearox Movie Reviews, signing out. Y'all take care.